The first official Republican Party primary debate was a complete disaster, replete with moments that range from just weird to downright terrifying. And we're going to unpack one of those low-key, terrifying moments. But before we do, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so what am I talking about? Well, last night, the first official Republican Party primary debate occurred, and it was a complete disaster. I was not able to watch it in real time. Part of me didn't want to watch it at all and just kind of catch the highlights. But I went back and watched much of it, and it was a complete disaster, a crap show of the most epic proportions. And several of my predictions did not occur. Like, for example, I predicted that Chris Christie would dominate in terms of the debate, certainly without Donald Trump there to talk over him and dominate the attention. But actually, Christie underperformed. He wasn't the worst, but he wasn't the clear winner as far as I was concerned. It could be because the absence of Trump threw him off, whatever reason. But that said, there were several moments still that were just bonkers. I mean, weird moments, a bunch of lies, and some of them were minor, aggravating but minor, relatively speaking, and others were like legitimately terrifying. And one that I don't think is getting enough attention because it's not as quite as sensational or scandalous per se, but could low key have massive implications for the future of humanity. Literally, is when the subject of climate change came up, and it came up a few times. And folks, some of the responses here, I mean, some general responses from all the candidates, but in particular, specifically weird, deranged comments from one or two of the candidates in particular. It's bizarre. All right, so I have a couple of clips to play for you, and then we will unpack it together. But let's go to this first one, and you need to brace yourselves for the crazy to come.
Do you believe in human behavior is causing climate change? Raise your hand if you do.
Well, look, we're not school children. Let's have the debate. I mean, I'm happy to take it to start. Alexander, so do you want to raise your hand or not? I don't think that's the way to do. So let me just say to Alexander this.
All right, so notice that nobody raised their hands. Martha McCallum asked, okay, listen, do you think that man-made climate change is a thing? Nobody raised their hands. Nobody. Not just the far-right weirdos, but also the quote-unquote reasonable moderate Republicans like Asa Hutchinson and Chris Christie. This is a problem, or Tim Scott for that matter. This is a problem because it's further proof, as I've said with respect to people like Nancy Mason, Don Bacon, whatever impulses some of these moderates have to be moderate, their instincts towards, or their inclination towards being moderate is seriously hamstrung by who they're surrounded. So Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson probably genuinely believe that, yeah, anthropogenic climate change is real. We'll get to that. But because they're surrounded by crazy, not just on the stage, but also within their own party, they can't just like casually go, yeah, of course it's a thing, and we need to address it. And then just come up with, even if it's just the BS, right-wing talking points which never come to fruition, that the free market will handle the solution. They can't even acknowledge the problem. All right, that is deranged moment number one. But now we have to turn to a particularly deranged person, especially as demonstrated last night by Vivek Ramaswamy, who he is catching up with Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis sees Vivek Ramaswamy in his rearview mirror, gaining on him. This man has no political experience. He's certainly highly educated, seems very smart, but he is basically, I don't know. He's arguably more deranged than any of them. And again, that was on full display last night. But this is what Vivek Ramaswamy has to say enthusiastically about notions of climate change and anthropogenic climate change.
Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the...
By the way, that is a contradiction in terms. Let us be honest as Republicans. Buddy, you would that would be like a paradox of like timeline shattering proportions. An honest Republican politician it would cause the universe to implode. So please don't bring that on us.
Stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax. And we have to declare independence for it. And the reality is the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. And so the reality is more people are dying of bad climate change policies than they are of actual climate change.
So this one's a bit complicated. So what Vivek Ramaswamy said repeatedly is the climate change agenda is a hoax, the climate change agenda is a hoax, and he was booed. And so initially you might be thinking, oh, that's actually encouraging. At least the people in the audience, seem to recognize that climate change is real. But they might have also been booing at him, making the casting aspersions at the other people on the panel, saying that I'm the only one not bought and paid for. So I don't know how to parse that per se. But Vivek Ramaswamy says the climate change agenda is a hoax. Again, I don't know what that means. If he's saying that attempts to address climate change are a hoax or are bad or ineffective, but I don't know why that would call that a hoax. It seems to be that he is very cowardly suggesting that climate change itself is a hoax while also trying to decry the proffered solutions to address climate change. I don't know. He's walking this weird rhetorical tightrope. But in case you had any doubts that maybe, he just disagrees with some of the strategies involved to address climate change, he removes absolutely no doubt whatsoever here. Again, brace yourselves.
But,
Hold on. You were named earlier. I'm going to give Vivek first.
We'll get to both of
Yeah,
you.
this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy, drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people back to work.
Okay, did you hear that? He wants to drill, frack, burn coal, and I guess embrace nuclear. That would be like some sort of ameliorating effect. Nuclear energy, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, is like the only real mass-producible green form of energy replacement, right? Certainly much safer than it ever was. I mean, people think of like Chernobyl and all the things, but our nuclear reactors are infinitely safer than what was going on in the Soviet Union in Chernobyl. And so here's the bottom line. These people are nuts. They're absolutely nuts, and they're cowardly in the worst possible ways. Climate change, according to many experts, is, it's an existential threat to the United States. It's not going to be like a meteor crashing into the earth where we're all just suddenly wiped out, but it will have serious long-term deleterious effects on the globe, not just the United States, but the planet, in ways that will cause countless casualties, especially as the effects continue to multiply over time and over generations, right? It's not just a minor detail. It's not like minor pollution. It's not like just little holes in the ozone layer. We're talking about, the destruction of our oceans, the melting of the ice caps, the, rendering large swaths of the bread baskets of the world that we need to eat, right? That we need to like grow food, right? Our food supply being rapidly affected. We're talking about massive changes in ecology and insect life and animal life and things. And then the political turmoil, the sociological consequences of this as well, because of course, as things become unbearably hot and unbearably intemperate and increasing frequency of natural disasters and droughts and all the things, people are going to have to relocate to areas that are less affected by it in the short term, which is going to cause all kinds of issues. If you're a conservative person, you're worried about immigration. That's going to cause some massive fluxes in immigration as well. It's just, it's a domino effect. So I just want to remind everybody, in case there's any doubt, anthropogenic climate change, the fact of it, it is a settled fact. It's not a matter of opinion. You are free to say that anthropogenic climate change isn't real, right? You can utter the words, but your words have literally zero meaning. They are irrelevant. If you are a person who believes that climate change isn't real, and if it is real, human beings have no influence on it, you're simply wrong. And it's okay to tell you that you're wrong. You don't have a valid opinion. You don't have a valid opinion worth respecting. The vast majority of actively publishing climate scientists, 97%, agree that humans are causing global warming and climate change. It's a fact, okay? Beyond that, we just heard this is 2023, but the Republican Party's history with just first recognizing that climate change is a reality and that anthropogenic climate change is a reality, and that human beings have a responsibility to try to mitigate, if not completely ameliorate, climate change, not only for our sake, but for the sake of future generations, like for their kids' generations, their grandkids' generations, or so on, or even if you don't have kids, for the sake of other people and future generations of other people who aren't you and your family. Strange thought to come from the Republican Party, but this article was from 2021, so it's a couple of years old. But at the time, in the 117th Congress, there were 139, you need to see the stat, 139 officials in the 117th Congress who still denied the scientific consensus of human-caused climate change. And that is out of a legislature of 535 voting members, 435 in the House, 100 in the Senate, and 139 of them were climate change deniers. It's incredibly dangerous. I'll also remind people that attitudes about this are changing. generally speaking, younger generations are accepting of the fact, and increasingly accepting of the fact, that climate change is real and that humans are a primary driver of it. Young Republican voters, however, seem increasingly concerned about the climate change crisis. A 2022 Pew poll found that 73% of Republicans aged 18 to 39 thought climate change was an extremely/very or somewhat serious issue. This is yet further proof that the GOP, in terms of its ideological radicalization and its rejection of science, yes, to a far greater extent than the left, even though the left sometimes does it as well. I'm sure you can cite examples of it. But this is one other area in which they are losing the next generation. They've already lost the Gen Z on social issues for the most part, which is why some of them, including Vivek Ramaswamy, the same subject of this discussion, wants to raise the voting age to 25. Because they're like, damn, we lost these voters. We can't win them back, or we won't try to win them back. So let's just try to make it so they can't vote. Even among their own base, 73% of Republicans age 18 to 39 think the climate change is at least kind of a big deal. They are further separating themselves and alienating not just their voters, but themselves from their voters. And they have no one else to blame. But if this idea continues to pervade, and if the GOP is in a position, more importantly, regardless of what they believe, if the Republican Party continues to be in a position to thwart climate change efforts, that will pose a serious risk to the future of not only this country, Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal/progressive, but also the planet writ large. And this is one of the many reasons why I say, and I think it's a fact, the GOP is a threat. The GOP as it currently stands, Republican leadership and the ideas that animate them, are a threat to this world.